Oh, full moon in Aries, how I love thee. Let me count the ways. This is the ain't nobody got time for that moon. Do I need to say that one more time again? This is the ain't nobody got time for that moon. Inspired by, is it Jennifer Lewis that does that did that skit? Um, And she goes, I don't want nobody fucking with me in these streets. Ain't nobody got time for that. That's like my full moon in Aries anthem. And this year, that anthem doesn't disappoint. Okay, it's 22:44 as I begin this. We're about 24 hours out from the most recent full moon in Aries. My name is Solara. I am a seer. I am a code keeper. I am a grid reinstator. I am a liberator of those who've been wrongfully spiritually oppressed. I am a new earth being, and I'm also founder of a system that I call TAROTSTROLOGY, and that's how I'm going to read the energies of tonight's chart. So thank you for being here. You are of course welcome for as long as you are in frequential alignment with being in my energy, being in this space, being in this place. Okay, so let's get into, and you alone will know that. That's not something anyone can tell you but yourself. Okay, let's get into this chart. Okay, so the full moon in Aries occurred at the time of recording yesterday in the early hours of the 7th of October. If you were, over here in Europe and more on the eastern side of the globe. If you are in the US, I believe this full moon occurred late at night Eastern time, like maybe 10 something, 11 o'clock Eastern time, which means on the West Coast probably like 8 something. So you guys had it on the 6th of October. We over here in Europe and further east had it occur on the 7th of October. Okay, now this is the first full moon that we've had since eclipse season, and the full moon in Aries is always a banger. And part of the reason for that is because Aries energy is what kicks off cycles. So literally when the moon becomes full in Aries, we are starting a whole new full moon cycle. So this is an important thing to note also. Also, the fact that the full moon in Aries occurs in Libra season, because Libra and Aries are sister signs, is also of significance and of note. Also, the fact that this is the first full moon we've had in Aries since the node switched out of Aries and Libra and into Pisces and Virgo. So this is the first full moon in Aries we've had since then. So it's also going to make a bit of an entrance. So we've got a lot of stuff going on right now. Now, this full moon has come to clear the way for you to move forward. This full moon in Aries has come to clear the way for you to move forward. And like I said, it's the ain't nobody got time for that moon, okay? We don't have time for things that misunderstand us. We don't have time for things that don't want to get into alignment with our I am truth. We don't have time for things being systems, entities that want to pull us into narratives that don't match who we are in our I am truth. That's what Aries energy is, guys. It's the reclamation of your I am truth. It's the reconnection to your unobstructed source energy flow. This is what this full moon in Aries is wanting to help to assist you with. And not for nothing, let's talk a little bit about what Aries energy represents in the energy body as far as I read it. Okay, so Aries energy very specifically is linked to the crown and the root. So the 1st and the 7th chakras, the opening and the closing bodily chakras, and that in and of itself tells you something. It tells you how Aries sets the tone for the container of an energetic system. It sets the tone for the container of an energetic system, meaning that your crown chakra is where It's a last bodily chakra from where you then are able to connect with your soul star, and your soul star is the chakra that connects you with the grander cosmic picture above. And the root chakra, in the same way, is the last bodily chakra that connects with your earth star, and your earth star is the chakra that outside of your body connects you with the cosmic picture of what we call the below, right? And in all frankness, I also believe there is Aries energy connected to both the soul star and the earth star. I read it as being an Aries and Pisces mix in those areas too. So Aries is here to set the tone for your energetic container, or if you're looking at it from the standpoint of, how I was saying before, how Aries is your I am truth, your ascendant sign is your Aries energy, then Aries is here to set the container for your true identity. How many of you have been dealing around this full moon in Aries with issues of identity? How many of you have been dealing with psychic attacks, the rehashing of old stories, attempts to pull you into narratives and personas that don't match you, might match the narrative that other beings need to have you in for whatever reason, but it's not who you know you are in your power? These are all themes that Aries energy brings up. And when you're dealing with the full moon comes to clear out that which has expired. These are the old stories that you're not here to re-sign on to, rehash, or go back around the bulby brush with again. And this is a really important thing to know, because like I said before, the full moon in Aries, of course, it occurs in Libra season. So the sun is in Libra presently while the moon was just in Aries. And so Libra deals with your contracts. So when you enter into Libra season, this is the renegotiation of your contracts based upon the frequency you're choosing to hold, the story you're choosing to believe about yourself, and where it is you're desiring to go. And as such, everything from the old identity and the old story and the old timelines and situationships want to come in and drag you back into the old energy and the cycle. And this is where Aries, this is the fire of Aries that's supposed to get under your ass and say, fuck a bunch of that. I refuse to bow. Aries don't bow for nobody. I refuse to bow down to storylines, narratives, personas. I refuse to bow down to anything outside of what I know to be my I am truth. Even if I haven't fully learned how to embody it, I will accept no other narrative that tries to take me down a road that is not a match for my I am truth. And what you're going to notice right now is that people who haven't done the work are grasping for straws. People who don't know who they are right now are having identity crises. Because when you don't learn how to plug into source and remember who you are, you will forever be chasing for explanations outside of yourself. And that indeed was the point of the false matrix, was to get us out of alignment with ourselves and source. So we would always seek for explanations outside of ourselves. We would look for others to tell us who we are. And Aries says, nope. Rise up, plug into the truth of who you are, remember who you are, reclaim that power, and reject everything that tries to pull you off your true throne and take you out of your true identity. Right? So this is really important right now, because we are coming out of an eclipse season where a lot of the themes around that had to do with letting go of self-sacrifice. You know how many identities we've taken on in order to sacrifice ourselves for other beings who can't handle their own truth and therefore can't handle ours, can't handle yours. And this full moon in Aries is coming off of piggybacking off of that eclipse, where it's enough sacrificing yourself for the group narrative. It's enough you know, separating yourself and going into hermit mode because other people can't handle you at your full strength and concentration. It's enough of all of that. It's time to rise. And when I was looking at, I didn't open all the charts, but I was looking at the table for the full moons and new moons that are coming up over the next couple of months. And this full moon in Aries occurred at 14 degrees, but the next 5 full moons, I think all the way up until the full moon in Leo being the last one next year, are all going to be occurring at 13 degree, a degree of death, but also a degree of power, divine feminine power, the darkness, the void factor of divine feminine energy, which most beings don't like. Most beings love the divine feminine when it's that soft, receptive, giving energy, but don't nobody who, well, some people like it, but most beings who haven't done the work can't stand the divine feminine, dark, destructive force that is here to slay the ego and clear out the things in our fields that go against our power, destroy us, one another, and the earth. Most beings can't handle that. They're intimidated by that. And quite frankly, those ones who want to run from the power of that feminine energy that exists within us all for the purpose of ending cycles and clearing out shit that shouldn't go forward, those are the ones who are going to have the hardest time, especially moving into Scorpio season. Because that 13 degree energy is the divine feminine principle of destruction for the purpose of transformation and rebirth, making her way very clearly on the planet. And not for nothing, we still have Lilith moving through Scorpio. This full moon, we have Mercury has entered Scorpio. Mars is still in Scorpio. These are all placements that are showing us the rise of that energy that is necessary to bring forth new life. Everyone loves to talk about the creational power of the feminine and the womb as a portal for creation. But most people don't like to talk about the womb as a portal for death and the voiding of things that aren't supposed to go forward. So there's a lot of opportunity for more beings to face their shadow at this time more than ever. And I've even been, I've been talking to different clients, different friends, taking trips myself also into the underbelly of my timelines and the shit that I've done. Seeing my origin, my origin stories, what we would call our villain timelines or whatever. I've been seeing some of those things clearly. I've been seeing the propensity of where my shadow nature has taken me when it's not properly harnessed. Okay, so all of that is coming up right now for us to address and for us to see. Okay, and the purpose of it is to bring forth something completely new and beautiful. And the other thing that I was noticing is that all the new moons, starting with the new moon in Libra next week, the next 6 new moons up until the new moon in Pisces being the last one, all of them are occurring at 28 degrees. So the next 6 new moons will be at 28 degrees. And that's significant because 28 is a degree of Cancer. And that shows me about what's happening with the restructuring of the grid systems. And I would venture to say that we've done a lot of the restructuring of the collective structures and grid systems. I would say the next 6 months are about personal grids, personal grid alignment, personal grid restructuring. That's what I really do feel the focus is going to be. Another thing I should also mention that when the full moons start to go into 13 degrees with the full moon in Taurus next month, for the next 5 full moons, 13 is also a degree of Aries. Okay, it's a degree of Aries astrologically that has connections to the death card in the tarot, which also connects it to Scorpio energy. But also, like I said, 13 is a divine creational number. It's where actually things begin to come into material fruition in such a way that they can hold significance. And we have 13 moons, technically 13 zodiac signs. 13 is a holy and sacred number because of what it represents geometrically. And that is that 13 is where a circle can actually turn into a sphere. It can turn into the 3D version of itself. And a lot of creation, when it gets to a spherical level, it has a certain power, staying power to it. And for that reason, 13 is a powerful number. And this is why they put so much emphasis on the number 12, demonize the number 13, you know, because if they could have us collectively in our psyches believing that something was fucked up about that number and we feared it, then we would be messing with the geometrical sequences that are necessary for the creation of our own timelines, as well as the true expression of our DNA. But that's a whole other thing that I'm not going to go into right now, because we're going to talk about the full moon in Aries that was actually expressing itself at 14 degrees. I'm jumping ahead of myself. Maybe we'll talk about that a little bit more when the full moon is in Taurus. So let's talk about this. 14, Sun in Libra at 14 degrees, Moon in Aries at 14 degrees. This is, astrologically speaking, a degree of Taurus that connects us to the Temperance card. The Temperance card is the card of Sagittarius in the major arcana. So this is interesting because 2025, being a number 9 year, is connected to Sagittarius astrologically. 9 numerologically is a Sagittarius number, and when you connect 9 to the tarot, it is connected to the Virgo energy of the Hermit. So this year, the number 9 year, we are connected astrologically to Sagittarius, and through the tarot to Virgo and the Hermit. So therefore, a lot of the themes of this year have to do with the number 9 and have to do with Sagittarius energy. And indeed, we are exiting, we've exited September, and we're clearly in October now, a couple of days out from the first 10-10 portal. As I film this today, it is the 8th of October, so it's the first 9-9 portal of the October month. So I say that because we've been through the process of the 999 portals in the month of September, that were also activating this Sagittarius energy, and now we have it coming forth in the full moon that just occurred in Aries. And this is also foreshadowing the power of what is to come for many this Sagittarius season. And I do believe that this full moon in Aries, like I said, it's the ain't nobody got time for that full moon, right? This is where many beings start to rise up into their power to assert the truth of who they are divinely. Also know, though, that this is also where beings who live in the realm of ego, everyone got something to say when the full moon is in Aries, and oftentimes beings who are not rooted in the truth of themselves and don't want to see the truth of themselves. There's a lot of egoic conversation, a lot of egoic arguing, because that Aries energy in its shadow will have people arguing points that to them make sense from the standpoint of wanting to be stubborn and not move away from their stance. That's not the same as being in your power. So, for example, I had to chuckle, and I wrote about it also when I opened Threads yesterday morning, a couple of hours out from the full moon in Aries, and I was on the Threads, and 2 people in different posts were literally arguing with themselves because they were like, trying to combat something that the original poster had said, but the person who had posted said nothing about what they were arguing, and they were going back and forth, and it was with themselves pretty much because they were arguing a point that hadn't even been stated. And that, my friends, is classic full moon in Aries energy in the shadow. It is when beings who are disconnected from themselves seek to prove points that nobody actually is in contention with them over. And because they are at war with themselves and don't know how to express that or how to process that internally, they have to pick a war outside of themselves with someone else, even if that person isn't even really engaged in that with them. Okay, so that's the shadow aspect of the full moon in Aries, right? And at the end of the day, we're all, we all hold every aspect of the degree of an expression of energy. It's just, again, it's to what degree do we hold that. So when I speak about these shadow energies, it's like, well, where are we doing that to ourselves too? Where are we avoiding those places where we're actually at war with self and picking fights with other beings instead, or picking to dwell in conflict in other areas because we don't want to settle the conflict within self. Aries, in its beautiful medicine, comes to show us that every single thing that we think we have a problem with externally actually has an internal root. And everything can be fixed from that place if we are wise enough to see that. And where we are dealing with beings who aren't able to tap into that truth, that's where you know you're out of alignment and you can keep it moving. Because Aries energy, beings think that Aries is a selfish energy. And Aries can be very self-absorbed in its shadow expression, in the exploitation of its medicine. Yes, it can be. But people often forget that Aries energy is the foundation for what allows Libran energy to shine, meaning that you cannot be in healthy harmony with another if you're not first advocating for self. And that's what Aries comes to show us. Aries is a fierce advocate for your power, for your truth, in order that you find yourself equally yoked in all of your intimate relationships and all of your intimate exchanges, because Libra is where you begin to learn how to truly match your energy instead of condescending in that shadow Piscean energy, condescending to fit into someone else's narrative or the group's narrative. And I mention Pisces because as you move through the full moons, there's medicine that each one connects you to. So the last full moon we had was in Pisces. It was teaching us how to stop self-abandoning, self-sacrificing. This full moon in Aries is just like clear out everything that the full moon in Pisces began to show you. Every one of the signs, zodiac signs, they work together for the purpose of helping us rise and evolve in the fullness of who we are, for as long as we recognize that, which is why I will always say it makes no sense to dislike a zodiac sign, because whatever zodiac sign you're disliking that aspect of yourself. And for as long as you're disliking that aspect of yourself, you will not be able to see that part of yourself to be able to properly heal and rise into your wholeness, right? So let's get into the tarot astrology of this. The sun in Libra at 14 degrees. That's the Sun card. That's the Justice card. The Empress to a lesser extent. The 14 degrees of Libra energy is the Three of Swords. 14, again, it connects us to the Temperance card in the tarot, as well as it is a degree of Taurus. Now, Taurus and Libra are both Venusian signs, both are signs that are ruled by Venus. So we have very powerful Venusian energy in that the sun is in Libra, and Libra being ruled by Venus, but also we have the 14-degree undergirding. So we have more Venusian energy coming through because that 14-degree mark is a degree of Taurus, also ruled by Libra. Now, Venus expresses herself through Libra and Taurus in different ways. I'm going to say this again. I know for those of you who've been chilling with me for a while, you've heard me say this before, but it bears repeating because people have a very skewed idea of what justice is. Justice in our culture has become synonymous with something that is wrong or bad or even vengeful. But real justice speaks about harmony, peace, balance, and the absence of discord. That's what true justice is actually speaking of, and it's referring to frequency and what is energetically balanced. And there's no judgment where that belongs, because where that is concerned, because if something doesn't match the frequency of something else, there's no need to judge it. There's just the observation that it's not working and to let it go. And this is what this full moon in Aries and the sun in Libra is helping us to remember. Everything in the false matrix was geared towards struggle timelines. And I'll tell you why they like struggle timelines and these stories in the false matrix of struggle being something that is not only what you must endure, but something that is honorable. We love that good old struggling story and dysfunction being honorable. Well, first and foremost, struggle being honorable is another tactic of self-sacrifice. But I'll tell you especially why they like struggle to be a major part of our narrative in the false matrix. Where there is struggle, there is frequential injustice, frequential imbalance, and it's as simple as that. When you are not able to see eye to eye with another person, you don't even have to judge them at a certain point. You don't have to tell them, you're doing this and you're this and you're that. I know that we have the propensity to do that in our egos. We do that. But if we were to just step away and look at the truth of it, we would realize that they're not on the same wavelength as us. They're not on the same timeline as us. They're not on the same frequency. There's a frequential disturbance. And no matter how much you try to prove your point, get them to see things your way, get them to understand where you're coming from, or they try to do the same for you, it's not going to work because you're not on the same frequency anymore. All conflict is rooted in frequential disturbance that can either be corrected through both beings rising into a frequency they can share without them both having to compromise something in their own frequency, or it's established a lot of the time in the false matrix by the being who is at a lower frequency trying to get the one at a higher frequency to condescend, to go lower so that they don't have to go higher. And that's how it works. And through the full moon in Aries and the sun moving through Libra in the aftermath of this crazy eclipse season in Virgo, we are being reminded again of how frequency actually works, so we can begin to make decisions that are honoring, self-honoring, and therefore honoring of everyone that is involved, and we can stop wasting one another's time. Because what is this full moon? This full moon is that ain't nobody got time for that moon. Right? It's time to rise into your frequency and stop negotiating it. And that's what Aries helps us to remember. And this is going to be a 6-month story. You know, when we have a full moon or a new moon, it opens a new 6-month story in that sign. So from the full moon in Aries up until the astrological new year in 2026, we will be dealing with those areas where we have learned to sacrifice, we have learned to condescend instead of owning and standing in our frequency, or we have learned to negotiate our value and our truth in order to be fake accepted as opposed to being loved and honored in our power. All of these things are going to continue to be important as we allow the residue of the programming, the conditioning, the wounding to continue to die out. And this is where the feistiness of the Divine Mother in her shadow, in her dark elements, when tempered properly, this is where she shines, in showing us where we need to tap into our raw, unadulterated, primal power for the purpose of putting to an end that which seeks to lower us, remove us from our seat of power, or make us feel like we're not worthy of it, or to make us feel ashamed for who we are in the expression of our fire. This is where that 13, 13, 13 degrees of the full moons that keep on coming up until the final full moon in Leo before it changes again. This is where she's going to really help us put to death those personas, those narratives, those timelines, those dynamics within our relationships where we settle for, like fawning. And we all, to a certain extent, we all have been there, because that's what the false matrix taught us to do. And we don't even realize unconsciously where we do it. And we've also been shown that somehow it's a noble thing, like being the bigger person, quote unquote, is the noble thing. And it's not. It really isn't. Compromising yourself is not the noble thing. It's not. And I know that some beings will not agree with me, and that's fine. You don't have to. I don't care to argue the point with anyone who doesn't agree. You don't have to agree. But being the bigger person, if it requires you condescending from your truth and lowering your frequency because somebody can't handle you at full strength, that's not being the bigger person. That's shrinking and being gaslit into your own distortion and destruction and dysfunction and self-sacrificing timelines. Okay, moon in Aries at 14 degrees. This is the moon. This is the emperor. We're being shown again. Whenever we have Aries energy, we're being shown, like I said, structures, foundations being built. Energetic foundations, but more importantly, because we're dealing with the full moon in Aries, and this is about the closing out of things, this is where foundations that are not rooted in source code are crumbling, are dying. Where there's discrepancy, it's being shown, it can't hide anymore. Where there's frequential misalignment, it can't be covered up anymore. Where beings don't want to see their contribution to dysfunction, it can't be hidden anymore. It's all being illuminated vastly, and it's being illuminated for our own ability to move into victory on our own terms. And sometimes it's going to sting the ego. It is to see things that we don't want to see about ourselves, about others, about what we've been entertaining, about how we've allowed ourselves to fall into states for whatever purpose, whether it's for another, with another. Oftentimes these are the stories because you're dealing with Libra and Aries energy. But it's really about reclaiming your power from all of the fuck shit. And in the instance of these situations, relationships, and dynamics where scenarios have fallen into a place of discord, dysfunction, disharmony, it's the opportunity for a full recalibration, for as long as beings are willing to not only be completely honest and transparent, but are also able to take full accountability for self instead of pointing the finger. Aries in the shadow expression likes to point the finger. Aries in the evolved in its evolved wisdom and medicine knows how to take accountability, is very accountable to self. Okay, is very aware of its contribution to any and every cycle. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so the 14-degree mark is the 4 of Wands. So again, speaking of foundations, sorry, it's the 3 of Wands. The 3 of Wands. So it's moving towards a foundation, or because you're dealing with the full moon, it can be moving away from clearing out what was a foundation, dealing with the 3 of Wands. right? Okay, let's move into Mercury in Scorpio at 0 degrees. I love it. I love that Mercury has just entered Scorpio, has just entered the chat in Scorpio, because we've had Mars moving through Scorpio. You know, we have Lilith in Scorpio. And I'm just checking out the other. We're going to have Venus moving into Scorpio in her own time too. But right now we do have Mercury and Mars in Scorpio. And of course Lilith in Scorpio too. And I love Scorpio energy because it's where we are invited to go into those places where we're afraid to dive. And most of the time, those places we're afraid to go to, there's a few reasons. For one, we might carry heavy shame around our own behavior, around how others have made us feel. We carry these heavy shame stories, and so we'd rather not go there, right? But the Scorpio energy is also the avoidance, or the reason why beings are afraid to dance with the Scorpio energy is because they want to avoid the truth that will come and destroy the false narrative that they've needed to hold on to in order not to see something that they didn't want to see. Maybe they weren't ready to see it. Maybe the responsibility and the accountability of what has to be done once they see it. There's a whole myriad of reasons why we like to hoodwink ourselves and gaslight ourselves. We all do it. We are human beings. We're hilarious. The ways that we try at times to hide things from ourselves. So Mercury in Scorpio at 0 degrees is here to have deep conversations, help us to have deep soul conversations about where we've been hiding things from ourselves. And I'm not even talking about those things that are happening in our day-to-day life. I'm talking about those things that are so buried and hidden that are the root of the cycles and the repetitive behaviors and the repetitive relationships, etc., that we keep on finding ourselves in because we don't want to deal with the root. The false matrix loves to put band-aids on shit. It loves to symptomize and brush away at the dirt on the surface. But what the false matrix never wants you to do is get to the root issue. Because for as long as you're dealing with symptoms and brushing things away and not getting to the root, you stay sick. You stay in the cycle. Getting to the root of the energy allows for you to pluck it out from where it began and to no longer repeat it. Dealing with things cosmetically and on the surface level will keep you returning, and that's what capitalism loves. It loves to capitalize off of your wounds and your pain. How dare you even think there's a way to get to the root cause of your own dysfunction and stop it there? Impossible, right? Wrong. And this is where the Scorpio energy invites us to remember this. So I've been talking about this for the past couple of weeks, about how many of you are entering into a time of deep soul remembrance. And from that place of deep soul remembrance, you would be surprised the things that you are able to heal in your timelines right now and pretty much instantly, that the false matrix would have you believe that you have to either be medicated for or going through things for months and years of your life to resolve it, only not to resolve it and to, oh gosh, now you have another issue. No. When you know yourself and you are able to see yourself fully, that is the key to a lot of the issues that we've been skirting around and going around in circles with ourselves and with one another in the false matrix for millennia. Some of this shit we've been doing for millennia. It's time to, don't nobody have time for that. No more of those fucking cycles. It's time to get to the root. And that Mercury in Scorpio wants to talk to you about the root story, what began the cycle, so that you can nullify and void it from the seed point. Okay? And it's not an easy thing, because it often, again, requires that you see things about yourself in this timeline and in other timelines that wasn't cute. Okay? The things I've seen about myself over the past few days, I have to tell you though, I was relieved. To be completely honest, I was relieved, because once you begin to see those parts of yourself, you can invite those aspects, you can forgive yourself, you can do so much more than live in fear of running from the depths of your own shadow. It's a relief to see those aspects of self and finally recognize how they've invisibly played into your cycles here. So that Mercury entering Scorpio and Mars in Scorpio and Lilith in Scorpio, and then when the Sun moves into Scorpio, it's just going to be a fucking party of intense self-revelation that's designed to liberate you into your power for the purpose of reclaiming the timelines that you can only have when you're fully transparent and authentic with your truth and rooted in your frequency and your power, and not being pulled to the left and to the right by other beings' demands for you and all this other stuff. This is what this window of time, especially the 6-month window of time through to the next eclipse season, is here to help us anchor into the creation of a whole new foundation based and rooted upon our power, and the clearing of all of the residue and the fuck shit of the false foundations that had us in timelines and cycles of dysfunction, discord, distortion, and complete inability to see ourselves clearly. I'm a Mars in Scorpio, so I'm loving this energy. I'm a Mars in Scorpio. I love, you'll know this if you know me, I love to go into the details of the nitty gritty of the root issues, the shadow. I'm not afraid of the shadow energies. My whole, everything that I've done is rooted on the exposing of the things that nobody wants to see, but everybody feels. And that's in all ways, not just the energies that other beings are enacting in the dark against us, but it's really knowing that even in that, the only way they're able to do that in any way and have an effect is through attaching to those things within ourselves that we still have to deal with. So, yes, this level of shadow work is going to be for those who are not afraid of their darkest timelines, their darkest expressions, that can meet those parts of themselves shamelessly. And that was one beautiful thing that I realized about my trip over the weekend to those aspects of myself and those storylines. I was only ready to do it, man. If I had been shown those things a few months ago, a year ago maybe, I probably would have still carried shame around the choices I made. But when I went into those places, I had nothing but, there was no more shame. There was no more regret. Because the truth of the matter is, shame and regret doesn't change anything. What changes is, what allows for change to happen is to take the wisdom and the lesson of the experience and turn it around into something good. And so many of us who are here to reinstate the New Earth timelines and the codes that bring forth the New Earth, we have gnarly stories of how we entered the false matrix also, and that's between you and yourself and your own soul and source to begin to unravel and to see. But I found it to be deeply liberating, and it came at a time where I have such a high level of self-acceptance that I didn't have to feel ashamed. And that for me is huge. Huge, huge, huge. Okay, so something else I want to mention with the Sun in Libra, 14 degrees with this Three of Swords. This is where you begin to see all the ways you break your own heart. You break your, and we can give other people the, we can point the finger and blame other people for where they've broken our hearts, but at the end of the day, the only person whose responsibility it is for you to really tend to your own heart, it's you, it's me, you know. So the Three of Swords also is showing us where we abandon our own hearts, where we overthink our own feelings and our own hearts into a place of making decisions that ultimately are rooted in self-betrayal, because that's what Libra comes to help us do. That's what the false matrix did on purpose, also taught us how to do, was to use our own minds to betray our own hearts. So to use the logic and the programming and the programs and the institutions and all the other fuck shit that they had us signing on to, which in balance it's not bad, but when we haven't learned yet the programming around how a lot of that stuff was used, so we would go against our own hearts and our own nature, our own power, our own intuition. This is what this energy is here to help us to reclaim also. Alrighty, so Mercury in Scorpio at 0 degrees. So Mercury is the Magician. Scorpio, we're dealing with death, the Tower, and the Judgment. And the 0 degrees of Scorpio is technically the Five of Cups. Yes, the Five of Cups. But it also is Ace of Cups energy, because whenever you're dealing, how I read it, whenever you're dealing with the 0 degrees in any sign, you're dealing with the ace that has to do with the element of that too. So Scorpio's water, that's Cups energy. So we're also dealing with the Ace of Cups as well as the Five of Cups. So this is all of the, we're being shown again deeply, deeply, so many things. To bring to your recollection and your mind what the Five of Cups is in terms of its illustration. The Five of Cups is when this person is standing on the edge of the water and is so busy lamenting over the 3 cups that have spilt that they miss that there are 2 brand new cups that are fully full behind them. And so the Five of Cups, because we're dealing with Scorpio energy, and Scorpio likes to deal with restoration, reclamation, rebirth, going into the depths of our own souls to reclaim our power by recognizing our own darkness. Because Scorpio deals with all of those archetypal themes. When the Five of Cups is really when we go into those dark places, those places that have been shut away because of shame, because of our own shadow, because other people couldn't handle us in that energy, and so we retreat from that part of self too. The Five of Cups and that Scorpio energy, it speaks of going to that place and almost like living in regret for what you've lost, because of a lot of the time wasted, you know. But again, this full moon is that ain't nobody got time for that moon. So Mercury is showing us how to recover that which we thought we lost, and realizing that we can bring the medicine of what it was that we thought we lost, we can bring it into our Two of Cups. You know, we can bring that into our Two of Cups. Mercury also entering into Scorpio is also going to start showing us it's a very powerful time to do the work around past life regression, around the timelines that have occurred in other lifetimes in other places. That Mercury in Scorpio will let you dive deep and see things and access things on a conscious level, not only emotionally, but consciously. Mercury is the planet that helps you to expand your mind and to actually access information consciously through the mental body, right? So Mercury in Scorpio is beautiful because it gives you the ability to access things consciously that maybe you haven't been able to because of, you know, your own protection before you were ready, denial, whatever the reason was. It doesn't really matter. The reason is neither here nor there. The point is that the ability to see consciously the threads that have made up timelines and cycles, and also the root cause of those things. Mercury moving through Scorpio is a very powerful time to do that. And even, I know that now as I record this, Mercury is no longer at the 0 degree point, but yesterday's full moon in Aries, it was at that 0 degree point, and that 0 degree point is showing me it's a portal. And what's really interesting is that we have Neptune in Aries at 0 degrees, and Scorpio and Aries are two signs that are ruled by Mars, right? And what's interesting about this also is that Neptune, in my opinion, is the planet that connects you to your infinite emotional truth and the stories you can connect through your emotional body because of that infinite reality. Whereas Mercury connects your mind infinitely to everything that is available on the mental level. So in other words, Mercury is where your ability to think infinitely comes through. Neptune is a planet through which your ability to infinitely feel comes through. And why is this important? Because Libra is about the balancing of the mind and the heart in its infiniteness, allowing for the infiniteness of your mind, the infiniteness of your heart to meet at that place where there's no longer the tug of war. So many people right now are at war with their infiniteness. They are so committed to the false matrix's story about who they are and who they can be, that they don't want to move past finite stories and scenarios that actually still bind them. It might liberate them into a different cycle that seems to be freedom because it's different scenery, but it's still bondage. But they're so afraid of their infinite possibility and the responsibility that is necessary and where they have to go within their own soul to navigate that, that they would rather keep on jumping into different variations of stories and cycles that are a reflection of their finiteness and the limitations that the false matrix desires to place upon them. And this is where there's a big divide that's going to begin occurring, and where the frequential disturbances are being felt more, because some beings are ready to move more into their infinite nature, to touch the things that they've been told are not possible, to go into those places within their own soul to recover the remembrance of that, whereas other beings don't want to do that. They're afraid of that. They'd rather trust the external traditions that make them feel safe. And there's no judgment when I say this. It just is the reality of where everyone is at this point. And that doesn't mean that there's not an opportunity for everyone to continue to rise. We're all going through our own processes of ascension. But the point is that there's another grand split that will also be occurring continually as more beings choose to align with their I am power, their infinite truth, and all of the stories that connect them to that, as opposed to the myths in the false matrix that want to keep them grounded in farce. Okay? And what many beings can't begin to intellectualize because it's too big for them, or it's beyond what it is they've been told is possible, what they can't intellectualize. They either will push away, reject, denounce, or try to make you feel some type of way because you are touching those things that they don't see as being possible, or within the context of this world, etc. So there's just a lot of like negotiating consciousness that is happening right now. Okay, let's see, Venus in Virgo at 21 degrees. I love it. So Venus in Virgo at 21 degrees, that is the Empress. Virgo, of course, is the Hermit. The 21 degree mark of Virgo is the 10 of Pentacles. 21 degrees is a degree of Sagittarius, with tarot associations to the World card. So with Venus moving through Virgo at this degree while the full moon is in Aries, we do have some kind of order being restored through us, through our bodies with this full moon. And what do I mean by that? Well, Virgo is very connected to not only the body, but it's connected to the way the body connects to the rhythms and the clocks of the cosmos. Virgo shows us how to come into alignment with our own natural rhythms as they pertain to who we are on an individual, but also on a cosmological level. And we lost a lot of that, which is why Virgo pulls us into hermit mode. We lost a lot of that through collectivism. We lost a lot of that through being told, this is what you need to do. This is the cure that you need. This is the therapy you need. This is the schedule you need. And instead of being entrusted to find our own way forward on our own soul's journey and soul's path, we were constantly being lumped into the prescriptions for how we were supposed to function in accordance with the collective and social tradition. And that is detrimental to our souls. And this is why Virgo calls us into ourselves. It is the sign that I say it is the perfecter of our soul, because Virgo calls us back into our own souls to remind us of who we actually are and who we were before the false matrix taught us to forget. So in doing so, Virgo is committed to us finding the rhythms that work with our own individual sense of thriving. So we're all wired so differently, and we do ourselves a grave injustice when we follow the information that is meant for another that actually isn't in alignment with our truth, with our rhythm. And I don't care how benign that information might seem. If it's not in order with yourself, it puts you into dysfunction. And knowing that about yourself is where Virgo comes in to show you. Virgo and Aries are both very, very self-aware, self-involved, and with good reason. Aries is the sign of the zodiac wheel that wants to introduce you to the truth of who you are. And Virgo, being the 6th sign on the zodiac wheel, and where the zodiac wheel is cut in half between self and the world, Virgo wants you rooted in who Aries shows you are. So I'm saying all of this because this Aries Virgo energy that we have working here, especially with the full moon in Aries being the first one since the new moon in Virgo that occurred 2 weeks ago, that second new moon in Virgo, there's a lot of coming back into alignment with being true to self for the purpose of anchoring into our sovereignty and our power to get back everything that is actually ours. And this is where that 10 of Pentacles, that legacy energy comes in, because Virgo reconnects us with our legacy codes, what we're here to grow on the earth, harvest naturally on the earth, leave behind on the earth, so that the earth is a better place because of our existence. This is Virgo, but we're not able to do that when we're out of tune with self. When we're out of tune with self, we're out of tune with others, and we're out of tune with the earth herself. And Virgo is so committed to putting us back into rhythm with ourselves. So I've been talking to different clients, and going through my own experiences. Go ahead, babe. And also talking to friends. And a big thing that many people have been going through is like being so freaking tired and not knowing what to do about that, and like sometimes feeling the guilt that there's nothing that they're doing but resting. But you know what? This is how you recover your rhythm. This is how we recover our rhythm, is when we allow ourselves to completely surrender to what it is we need as we recuperate, without the fear that we won't ever rise again, right? So the Venus in Virgo is helping us to recalibrate so that we tune into our true rhythms, as opposed to constantly stretching ourselves, betraying ourselves to follow rhythms and schedules and trends and formulas that actually deplete us. Yes, you're here to discover your own formula, your own schedule, your own medicine, your own therapy. And yes, it might contain all of the things that are available to you to pick out from within the context of what is here. But if you don't handpick it for yourself and know what it is you need on a unique level, what nurtures your own rhythms, then you are just continuing to feed the cycles of your own dysfunction. And Virgo is wanting us to really put an end to that. Put an end to that, because if we're here to connect with our true wealth and our true legacy again on the earth, the first thing we need to learn how to master and to look after is self. Yes, Mars in Scorpio at 10 degrees. Mars is the tower. Scorpio, again, is the death, the tower, the judgment. 10 degrees is actually the 6 of Cups. Okay, so a lot of, timelines of overlap where there are things, energies, beings, scenarios that you've kept taking forward with you lifetime after lifetime, cycle after cycle, not able to see the exact thread or the root of the repetition. This Mars in Scorpio is here to blow shit up so it becomes clear. Because when you blow shit up, then the foundation is exposed, right? So that's what I'm feeling. So this is, Mars is here to bring the endings that are necessary for the beginnings with that 10 energy. 10 is connected to the Wheel of Fortune. It's also a Capricorn energy. So this is all about the creation of the foundations for your new timelines. And if you want your timelines to reflect your power, your wealth, your value, then the foundation that you are building right now must be rooted in that truth. So all of this is about the exposure that is necessary so that the foundations that you're building now are going to bring forth a harvest that reflects your divinity, your sovereignty, your power, your truth, as opposed to the trauma loops that the trauma loops and the harvesting fuck shit that we keep on replicating and running through. Yes. So a lot of this in the collective energy, the structure that allowed for the harvesting and the continual trauma loops, it's mostly gone. Now what is left is the residue within ourselves, where we have to calibrate our own minds into the truth of who we are. We have to discern and make the choices while we're still living within the phantom of the false matrix of what it is that we're going to believe about ourselves and believe what is possible, and whether we're going to take on things that other beings are putting on us who are still lost and don't know who they are. You know, all of this right now is a deep level of connecting with self, using discernment, recognizing our own shadows and our propensities so we can get to the roots, build the proper foundations that are the prerequisite for our true timelines. So all of this is like everything's come down. You know, in many ways it's come down, and now it's like we're doing the cleanup. A lot of this is the cleanup, and the biggest place of cleanup is actually internally when it comes to clearing our minds, especially to receive the truth again of who we are in our source code, and allowing that unobstructed source energy to have its way through us again, you know. But that only happens as we surrender to the truth of who we are and remove the narratives that keep us grasping for false power, false security, false remedies outside of our truth. Jupiter in Cancer at 23 degrees. I think we're going to pretty much end here. We'll look at the nodes a bit, but Jupiter in Cancer, this is the expansion of the emotional body to rehold once more what is ours. Jupiter is the wheel of fortune. Cancer is the chariot. The 23 degree mark of Cancer, it is the Four of Cups. 23 is an astrological degree of Aquarius. Okay, so Jupiter is helping us in the emotional expansion that is necessary to really hold our codes again. The codes allow us to anchor into these foundations that we're building for our cycles, to reflect again organically who we are and to be in harmony with the earth. Okay, now another thing I do want to mention, and I don't want to go too deep into it, but I do think it's important, is like, I was talking with some friends yesterday about what's been going on with the magnetosphere, right? So yesterday there was like a Schumann whiteout, right? Where everything just went white on the screen or whatever. And I don't know, I haven't looked into whether we had a lot of solar flares and everything. I don't know, but this was like maybe a few hours out of the full moon in Aries yesterday. And then you can see that the magnetosphere is pretty much nothing at this point. And I got a download, I got a series of downloads back in Gemini season about how as the magnetosphere thins out and eventually pretty much dissipates entirely, that what is actually occurring is that that's what's allowing for the actual electromagnetic flip on the earth that overwrites the inversion in the false matrix. So everything in the false matrix was inverted to work in its opposite potential for the purpose of harvesting and creating finite timelines that then became loops. Everything was flipped. Now, as the magnetosphere, and I'm not saying the magnetosphere is going to stay gone forever, but the download I was getting was as it thins into nothingness, that's what allows for the electromagnetic resonance on the planet and in us as individuals to flip back into its proper source alignment, where it's pulling in that which allows for our infinite nature and flow to grow, and pushing that out which seeks to trap us into the looping structures that the whole false matrix was based upon. So that's another thing to think about. I mean, as we continue to move through Libra season, and not for nothing, Libra season is also, I noticed last year that during Libra season, the solar flare activity kicked up a lot. It was last Libra season, I think at one point we had like 3 solar flares that were X class occur in the space of 24 hours. And the reason that I'm seeing that occurs a lot in Libra season, and it's not only Libra season it happens in, but because Libra season is about the either the reconstitution of contracts or the instatement of contracts, of new contracts, right? Libra season is all about contracts that are based upon frequency, right? The choices you've made based upon your frequential truth. And it has to do with the frequency you're holding and you're carrying based upon your thoughts, your true thoughts about yourself. This is what I mean when I say frequency can't be faked. People can say whatever the fuck it is they want to say, but frequency cannot be faked. Okay? So beings who are ready for their new contracts and to even begin to go into their new earth contracts, their frequency has reached a level to allow for that. And the old, I want to be careful when I say this, but the old contracts that kept them looping will be vying to take them back into another cycle. But the ability to anchor into that frequency and the thoughts that are necessary, and these thoughts I'm talking about in terms of anchoring into your new frequency, have to do with your I am truth, who you actually are, versus the player or the person or the persona other beings in the false matrix need you to play to stay a part of a lower timeline that serves them for whatever reason. Your ability to tune into who you actually are versus who other people in the false matrix needs you to be is an integral part of being able to connect and anchor in the frequency that allows for you to move into newer contracts and timelines. And this is what a lot of the testing of now has been around. There ain't nobody got time for that full moon. This is the reason, because it's time to no longer have time for fables and stories and narratives that may have served you at one point, right? For your own ascension, your own evolution, your own growth, your own journey to getting here. But now it's time to leave it in the past because it's not who you are. Many of us were evolving at a rapid rate. Who you were a week ago is not who you are now. Who you were a month ago is not who you are now. And you know how and why that's possible? Because beings who are actually getting to the basement energies and doing the root energy work, you're able to shift your system very, very rapidly. Very rapidly, okay? And speaking of shifting your system, let me get into 2 announcements and then I'll get to the North Node. For one thing, I have, I think, 2 more placements for those of you who are looking to do your Tarot Astrology Wealth Code activations reading with me with a personalized decree, okay? So we meet together, we do the reading, and then I write you a personalized decree to anchor in what it was that we've discussed for you to move forward with that. Okay, so there's 2 more with the personalized decree, as well as if you just want the reading, there are spaces available for that. But if you specifically want it with a personalized decree written by me after our one-to-one, there are 2 more slots available for that. I will put the information in the description box and comment section below for that. I have a new decree that is coming out that is very much in reference to these full moon and Aries energies. Well, in reference to that, the eclipse, as well as what we're moving towards in the new moon in Libra in 2 weeks. And that is that there have been a lot of source code overrides. And in that, there are newer, higher contracts that are available to us. But then there are also the older contracts, like I've said, that are vying to try to like re-loop us in some way. This decree very specifically is to anchor in our choice to accept the source code override of all of the harvesting contracts that were designed, especially those ones that are on a time release, on a loop, that go back into that are reinstated every year through Libra season, right? This decree is designed to anchor in the source code overwrite that overwrite those contracts. So in other words, you're saying, I don't consent to another trip around just because this is on a time release, or whatever the loopholes are around the reinstatement of a contract. So that's the decree. It will be out when it comes out. When it is, I'll let you know on the community board. It might be out by the time this is published, if not within 24 hours of this being published. So check it out on the community board. Final announcement for those of you who are ready to work with the true structures of what the false matrix has built your dysfunctional loops upon. An excellent being to work with is Mia Yang Foster of the Clearing Circle. I've been doing a lot of work personally with Mia since August, and I have noticed so much of a shift in my own healing journey. And I can't recommend her services enough to those of you who are ready to get to the structures that supported your being harvested, which is different than just doing the shadow work. When you deal with the structures, there's still shadow work that has to be done, but dealing with the structures is like dealing with the foundational fuck shit that was designed to stymie you in a myriad of ways. So I will put Mia's information again in the description box below and in the comment section. Alrighty, now finally, let's get into these notes, right? Let's get into the notes so I can wrap this up, because we've been here for a minute. Alrighty. Take that as it resonates. The North Node and the South Node are both at 16 degrees. The reason I want to go into where they are is because, well, they're both at like the 9 of Cups and the 9 of Pentacles, right? So this is all about the liberation of self based upon value, your true value based upon following your own heart's intention, choosing to follow your heart over the crowd, over what is expected of you. This is what the 9 of Cups deals with. So 16 degrees of Pisces is the 9 of Cups. 16 degrees of Virgo, which is the South Node, is the 9 of Pentacles, right? So this is really, especially because you're dealing with the 9 of Cups in the North Node versus the 9 of Pentacles in the South Node. Are you coming back? Sorry. Because you're dealing with the 9 of Cups in the North Node versus the 9 of Pentacles in the South Node, this is really dealing with your stories around going after what feels right in your soul, regardless as to what it is that you accrue from it materially or you don't, right? And this is an important thing to know, because the door into your 9 of Pentacles, into your 10 of Pentacles, organically comes through that. Whereas we've been taught to take like back doors and loopholes through grinding and a lot of work and all this other stuff, when really your wealth has always been in alignment with your soul's truest desire and what connects you with what your soul considers to be true joy and true peace. Your wealth is connected. That's the doorway to it. And so this North Node in the 9 of Cups is really calling us in a collective, calling us collectively to retune into what feeds our hearts, right? And in all frankness, the 16 degree mark, that is a degree of Cancer, astrologically speaking, that connects us to the Tower card in the tarot. So this is all about blowing up the foundations that are dysfunctional and feed our misery instead of our contentment and our groundedness in our heart's truth. It's like blowing things the fuck up that need to go, That's what this full moon in Aries energy is. It's all like tower card energy. And the tower is Mars. It's pure Mars energy in the deck. And we have it coming through in so many different ways. We have the moon and Neptune and Chiron all in Aries. There's Mars. We got Mercury and Mars and Lilith in Scorpio. There we go again with that Mars energy. We have the North Node and the South Node at 16 degrees. More Mars energy as far as the tarot is concerned. You know, so this is a chart. And even like when you look at Uranus and Pluto, they're both 1 degree. Uranus is at 1 degree Gemini. Pluto is at 1 degree Aquarius. That's an Aries degree. You get what I'm saying? So again, in other words, more Mars energy. Okay, expressing through the degrees. Mars is on a mission through this full moon in Aries. Okay, this is ain't nobody got time for that moon. Okay, no more allowing for things in your reality to steal of your value, steal of your time, steal of your worth, steal of your power, try to determine who you are for you. No more of that. Don't nobody got time for that. Okay? So I hope that this reading and this report was helpful, insightful, hopefully a little bit amusing. And I'll see you guys again for the new moon in Libra. Hopefully the structure as to how I record, the aesthetics are about to change up as I move forward. So the next few readings, to be completely frank, they might be blackout readings, so please prepare yourselves for that as I transition into my own new timelines. But I just want to give you a heads up. I thank you guys so much for all your love and all of your support. I thank you to those of you who have booked with me, purchased my decrees, donated to my channel and my work, supported me on other platforms. I'm feeling a little bit sentimental now because I'm realizing that this is the last time I will be recording the TAROTSTROLOGY Ascension Report in this environment. And so now I'm feeling the weight of it. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much. Happy full moon in Aries. And enjoy this passageway into the new moon in Libra, where many of our new timelines are going to begin to become more real. So I love you. I will see you again when I see you. Until then, be well.